Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Tooth and Claw Podcast. We have our wildlife biologist, Wes Larson. He's the reason we keep coming back for more. He's the man.
I am not the
star. If he can't do it, no one can. And
that might be true.
We have Mike Smith with us. Pretty replaceable.
Yeah, I'd say expendable. I would say of the three of us. Yeah. No. I mean, come on. I've been planning my exit strategy for years.
You have?
Oh, yeah.
What is it?
First of all, I got to get out of these pants. You guys up to speed on the whole raw denim deal?
No.
Yeah, it's limiting my movement. So basically what it is you buy a pair of, this is what I've learned from research on the internet. You buy a pair of pants and then you wear them for 6 months to break them in. And then they start feeling pretty comfortable from what I've gathered.
Oh, yeah.
That seems like a bad deal.
I didn't know what I was getting myself into. This is crazy.
Yeah.
It is how people get like their favorite pairs of pants ever.
Yeah.
And you may not recognize me. I got blue hair. If you're on YouTube, you're probably like, oh, I thought it was brown and then pink and now it's blue.
Yeah.
But I'm Jeff.
You're wildin', dude.
The 3 most popular cotton candy colors.
That's true.
Chocolate. Yeah, chocolate, right?
Oh, man.
Ew.
I don't know. A brown cotton candy sounds gross to me. Jeff, you got a new member of your family over there, don't you?
Yeah, I put him in a boarding today, though.
Okay.
I'm trying to find him a place for while we're gone, but...
It's a dog, not a kid.
I got a 3-legged dog. A giraffe at the zoo bit his leg off. I missed what you said. But...
I said it's not a kid, just so everyone knows.
Wait a minute. Is the giraffe thing true?
No, that's not true.
And then, so then how did he lose his leg?
He lost his leg because he got hit by a car, and his previous owners maybe something happened to where he didn't get the right surgery. So when he went to the shelter, it wasn't healing right, and they had to amputate. That's how he lost his leg.
That's kind of true. We don't know if he got hit by a car.
Okay, but something happened to his leg.
It could have been a giraffe.
But it didn't bite it off. You said a giraffe bit off his leg.
That's true.
Yeah. So a giraffe could have kicked him.
Yeah, I wanted a dog with 4 legs, but they offered me 25% off for a dog with 3 legs.
It makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, you've always been good with money, Jeff. So
yeah,
good job. Good job adopting, though.
Yeah,
he seems really cute.
He's a great dog.
Yeah, his name is Shanks. After a One Piece guy that only has 3 limbs, right?
Yeah.
That's the coolest name. This is by far the coolest dog name I've ever heard.
It is a great name. I like it.
A good test was Mom, because Mom has no idea who Shanks is at all.
Yeah.
And she was like, I think it's cute. So that's good.
There we go.
Like, people who don't know who Shanks is kind of likes it.
You got the Cindy Larson stamp of approval, which isn't always easy to get.
No.
Makes him seem kind of like a prison dog.
Yeah, like he's going to shank someone.
Yeah.
Sure, I like that. Well, any other big news out there between you two?
No.
I didn't know you had to, let him go to the bathroom. And
yeah, they're a lot of work.
Yeah.
Well, it's only, 13 more years of that.
Because in that one movie, Meet the Fockers,
that's the second one.
The cat how to just use the toilet.
Yeah, that's Meet the Parents, right?
Yeah.
Meet the Fockers. Not that Meet the Parents was that good, but there sure was a huge drop in quality as we got to Meet the Fockers.
Do you think male dogs actually kind of like it when they're missing one of their back legs so they don't have to raise it when they pee? They can just pee whenever. They're ready to go.
My dog...
Yeah, that might be true. He's missing a front leg, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, my dog, so he's a male, but he pees sitting down, and he pees all over his front leg.
Like Dad. Dad does both of those things.
Oh, man.
Hey, well, we got a big story today. It's a big one.
Big animal?
Both in the size of the animal and the story itself.
Ooh.
This was one of the stories that when we started the podcast was one of the first ones to immediately pop into my head. I know I've said that a few times, but it's very true with this one. This is based off of a book and a true
Which
story.
one wasn't it true with?
I've
Treadwell?
told the truth with all of those. No, Treadwell was like top of mind. This one, honestly, though, was probably top 3, which is
Whoa.
kind of crazy.
Yeah. That's wild.
So it's a big episode. And in like 2011, I think one of our mutual friends, Shane, had read this book and he recommended it to me strongly. He said, you know what, Wes, I think you'd really like this book. It's about a true story. It's about animals. It's just really fascinating. And I bought a copy of it and I just inhaled it. I loved it. And that book is called In the Heart of the Sea. It's written by Nathaniel Philbrick. And it is about the story of the whale ship Essex, which is the true life inspiration for one of the most famous literary works of all time. Mike?
Moby
Dick.
I don't like the word
Yep.
dick, so that's why I didn't say it.
Yeah.
What? Bleep it. Yeah.
Moby Richard.
I always call people a mopey dick when they're being kind of mopey, and I never get a
really?
good laugh for it, and I think it's pretty funny.
Sure.
But no one ever thinks that's that funny. So I guess I should stop. All right. So this is going to be a 2-parter, and really there's not a lot of wildlife in this story as far as what we typically are talking about. There's a very quick, crazy interaction with the whale, and we're going to be talking a lot about whaling and the impact it had on even some kind of surprising wildlife. But it's not a typical story in that this is more a story of survival than it is an attack, if that makes sense. Before we start, I want to read a tweet that I recently saw, which isn't my typical way to start an episode, but I really like this tweet. It's kind of laughed.
X.
Zeet.
An X. Let me read this zeet to you guys. It is from Prince Vogelfrey. I don't know who this person is. I don't know anything about their account. I'm not promoting them. Just so you know, I don't know anything about them. But I did like this tweet. It did make
Gotta
me
be
think.
careful nowadays.
Yeah,
Huh?
yeah. And it says, maybe it all went wrong when we killed the whales. Maybe their songs kept the great dream together. Vast brains slowly, carefully ordering the world with actions subtler than apes could ever see. God is dead. His blubber lit a lamp in London. Which I thought was really pretty.
Wow. Very poetic.
And then I do think he maybe kind of stole the idea from Cormac McCarthy, who wrote a book on whales and men, or an essay. And it says, whales have been evolving for 30 million years. To our 1 million, a sperm whale's brain is 7 times the size of mine. The great size of his body has little to do with the great size of his brain. They actually have the biggest brain of any living animal ever. Other than a place to keep it. I have what-if fantasies. What if the catalyst or the key to understanding creation lay somewhere in the immense mind of the whale? Some species go for months without eating anything, just completely idle, so they have this incredible mental apparatus, and no one has the least notion what they do with it. Lilly says that the most logical supposition, based on physiological and ecological evidence, is that they contemplate the universe. Suppose God came back from wherever it is he's been and asked us smilingly if we'd figured it out yet. Suppose he wanted to know if it had finally occurred to us to ask the whale. And then he sort of looked around and said, by the way, where are the whales? So both of those I thought were really poignant thoughts about this amazing animal that has the biggest brain ever, and then we have no idea.
Whales might have bigger brains, but I'd like to see a whale try to fake going to the moon like we have.
Sure. Yeah.
You gotta stop. You gotta stop it. Oh,
yeah, Jeff needs this dog. Will be good for Jeff to get some fresh air. No, I do think though we've talked about whales a bit and about their songs and their sociality and just all the different things that are so incredible about these animals. And I really do think there's a good chance that we have no idea, just how deep thinkers whales might, could be. So I do just want to bring that up before I talk about the absolute horrors that we inflicted on whales during a lot of our modern history.
Technically, or literally speaking, they are some of the deepest thinkers.
Yeah, good point.
That's a very astute observation. Prince and Cormac are both aware that there are still whales. We didn't get them all.
Yes, we didn't get them all, but we sure did a number on them, and we sure it wasn't like an easy way that we killed them too. We tortured whales. We have been very violent to whales. And I do just want to let people know We're going to be talking about some of the whaling practices in depth in this episode, and they aren't easy to hear about, but I do think it's important that we kind of learn from our mistakes and reflect on the past. And in a nice way, it's a good way to see how far we've come in some of our attitudes toward these animals.
You want to know what method of torture would not be effective on a whale at all is waterboarding. They'd actually be like really excited.
Like, yes, thank you. I was getting quite dry.
A little more.
Yeah.
Well, and interestingly,
Right in my blowhole. Thank you.
Airboarding wouldn't really work either.
That's true.
They're impermeable to most of our best tortures. Okay, so most of my research does come from this book. I did read some other articles and stuff. There are endless sources of information about this story because it is such a big historical event. But
you could probably burn their feet.
Ooh,
yeah, they don't
ouch.
really have feet. But
Yeah, dangle
their
them over a
tails,
fire.
They're flukes. Yeah, that worked.
Put them in an Iron Maiden, like a huge one though.
All right. As the whaleship Essex left the tiny Nantucket harbor in August of 1819, there were 21 men aboard. 12 of these men were from Nantucket and had been raised in the whaling industry, while 9 others had come from off-island. They'd be gone for 2 to 3 years in search of sperm whales in the endless expanse of the Pacific Ocean, and each man aboard had hopes of returning richer than when he'd left. But none of these men would return on the Essex, and only 9 would survive this voyage. The story of the Essex would become one of the most harrowing and unbelievable tales of death and survival, and like I mentioned earlier, would inspire one of the greatest literary works of all time. And at the center of this story, there's a massive, enraged sperm whale.
Ooh,
All right.
cool.
So before we really get into this story, we need to dust off our old time machine, take a trip back 400 or 500 years. We're not going to do anything else. We're just going to go to Nantucket. Sorry, guys. We're going to wait on all the other stuff we want to do with this time machine. And Jeff, we're not going to see if they actually went to the moon. Okay? You just got to accept that we did
I
it.
already know.
All right. And we are going to go to the heyday of the whaling industry. Kind of. We're going to talk about that later, actually. And a tiny island off the coast of Massachusetts that for a brief window was one of the major economic centers of the world. And
Get
that
outta
island's
here.
called Nantucket. I will not get out of here. And we're not talking Nantucket nectar here, the juice. We're talking
Nantucket.
Nantucket
Whaling.
was one of the biggest economic centers of the world at one point.
It was this tiny island.
Get out of here.
I'm not going to get out of here,
You
Jeff.
get right the heck on out of here, Wes.
Nantucket was originally colonized by white people in the late 1600s.
course it
English
was.
You
settlers
probably hate
that
that.
showed up. I don't love it. The small grass-covered island sat about 20 miles from the coast of present-day Cape Cod and traditionally had been inhabited by the Wampanoag tribe, or as they were commonly known as, the people of the first light. This is the same tribe that is famous for first interacting with a lot of the pilgrims that showed up.
Is
You probably
Nantucket
think the whales would be better off if they were still running things.
Yeah, I do. I think the world would probably be in a much better place. Mike, what were you going to ask about Nantucket?
Is Nantucket a Wampanoag? Is that the tribe?
It is.
Is that
Yes.
a native word to their language?
It is.
where'd
And
that-
I'm trying to remember what it meant.
It kind of sounds like a Christian version of a curse word, like a southern, like a dadgummit.
Nantucket. Yeah. Yeah.
Dadgummit.
Like a prospector. Let's see. I can find that answer though real quick. And it means faraway island or sandy sterile soil tempting to no one. Okay. Which isn't true because of actually where it sat in the Gulf Stream, the weather on Nantucket was really conducive to agriculture. So the earliest settlers saw the island as kind of this grass-covered, wolf-free paradise where they could grow crops and raise livestock in peace. But word actually got out too quickly, and it didn't take long before every acre of Nantucket was overgrazed, overtilled, and the residents of the island were forced to look at the sea as a source of their food and livelihood.
I thought you were going to say wolves found it.
Yeah, the wolves made it out there, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we are
Word
in
got
the right
out."
place." Yep. North Atlantic right whales gathered near this island during the winter, and they had been named right whales by settlers because they were considered the right whale to kill. And in the early 1700s,
What?
the people
No way.
yeah, like
That's-
they were a whale that had, oil, the blubber was good, and they were easy enough to kill. So that's why they're called right whales. I know, it's dumb, but that's what the nickname came from.
Okay.
We should probably
kinda-
change that name.
Wrong whale.
Yeah. Because it didn't make sense the other way either, just like a direction.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff doesn't make sense. In the early 1700s, the people of Nantucket learned how to harpoon and kill these whales, and then how to process and sell the oil that came from boiling their blubber. And during the early years of this whaling industry, the indigenous people of the island were completely instrumental in every aspect of whaling, but they were essentially treated like servants by the white inhabitants. It's not like they had a fair shake in this whole industry. Then, in 1712, one of the captains on Nantucket was blown many miles out to sea in a small whaling boat, and he stumbled upon a pod of whales that was very different from the right whales that they were used to. Wrong whales. He managed to harpoon. Ha! He managed to harpoon one of these whales and was thrilled to find that the blubber of the whale was much more rich in oil than the right whales. And even better, this whale had a large reservoir of an incredibly high quality oil in its rectangular and oversized head that was so accessible it could be ladled into a cask directly from the whale. Like you could put a bucket into this cavity and just scoop out oil. That's how easy it was to get to. You didn't have to process it. You didn't have to boil it. Sperm whales literally have a cavity in their head that is full of oil.
Wow.
And
like
this-
the Avatar whales.
Yeah, kind of. It's like the freaking Tulkun, dude. Except this doesn't make you be young
It's
forever.
like
I wish it did.
Avatar's
Well, have you
based
tried
on
that?
the world.
Yeah,
Based on the
they're-
world. Yeah.
there are some parallels.
You're
It's like
eloquent
he got
today, Jeff.
inspired by the world, dude.
Yeah, it's
This fluid was called spermaceti because it kind of looked like seminal fluid. Jeff, that's jizz.
Yeah.
Just so you know, we're talking jizz here. And that gave rise
It
to
all
the
looks-
English.
No jizz looks the same, though.
That's true.
oh, dude.
You are the expert.
I just thought of like the best hustle in the world is you just get
What?
your own bucket full of your own fluid and sell
All right.
it,
Say it's from a
Sell
whale.
it as
and just be like, "This is whale
fluid.
juice."
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Surely a lonely sailor too has tried that back in the day. This gave rise to the English name of the whale, the sperm whale. And whale oil was used for a lot of different things. Fuel in lamps was one of the primary uses in the early 1800s, but later on it would be used extensively as lubrication for machinery, for soap making, for candle making, for cosmetics, for other industrial applications, and it was even used to make explosives in World War I.
Whoa.
And just like a quick note, we tend to think of whaling kind of peaking in the 1800s and whale oil only like being important back then to light lamps. But we actually found a lot of other uses for the oil throughout the 1900s. And the highest number of whales were actually killed between 1940 and 1975. Sperm whales quickly became the main target of the entire Nantucket whaling industry. And by 1970, they'd pretty much wiped out all of the local pods of whales, and they had to build bigger boats for longer voyages. We're going to need a bigger boat. I'm sure someone
Dang.
said that at some point, you know?
Yeah, they did.
Whaling expeditions that only needed small whaling boats and small crews now needed big schooners, crews of 20 or more, and as more and more whales were extirpated from the Atlantic, the boats were required to travel around the tip of South America, the Cape of Good Horn, and push into the fertile waters of the Pacific. This meant that trips that used to just last months would now last 2 or 3 years, and Nantucket basically became a community of women and children.
Oh, utopia, in other words.
Oh, because
old
Panama
dudes.
Canal. Panama Canal didn't
Yeah.
exist, Mike.
It sure didn't.
And they couldn't go
You're
through
right.
the
Arctic Passage, the Northwest
couldn't do that.
Passage.
Yeah.
So then they had to go all the way down there.
I've been having some tooth problems lately. I'm very lucky that my older brother's a dentist, but I do tend to really clench and grind my teeth at night, and that does cause a lot of problems for me. I even recently cracked a tooth because I was doing it so much. And that's why I'm really excited to tell you guys about Remy. I had an old mouth guard that was too thick. It made me gag when I put it in. I really didn't like it. But Remy night guards are just much more comfortable than the one that I had before, and they're a lot cheaper. You can get the same professional quality and comfort as a night guard from the dentist for 80% less the cost by taking your own impression from the convenience of your home. And for me, it was actually more comfortable than the one I got from the dentist. Remy night guards are clinically tested and FDA cleared to prevent teeth damage from grinding, to reduce jaw tension and facial muscle strain, and to improve your sleep quality. So it's really easy how it works. You purchase your impression kit, it comes straight to your door. You follow the step-by-step instructions to get your perfect impression. If you screw up, they're going to set up an appointment for you to talk with a dental professional. It's already super easy, but if you make a mistake like I did on my impression, they make it really, really easy to make sure you do it right. And then they craft and ship your custom fit night guard straight to your house. You get your night guard back and you start protecting your teeth. So protect your teeth with Remy by using code TOOTH to get 50% off your new night guard. That's 50% off at shopremi.com/tooth with code TOOTH. And I really do love my Remy night guards. I feel like they're so comfortable in there. I hardly even remember I'm wearing them. I'm not grinding as much. My teeth feel better. Thank you, Remy, for sponsoring this episode. I think when we used to think of back in the olden days when men would leave for years at a time to do different, faraway jobs, we probably imagine their partners, these women that the whalers left behind, like pining for their husbands and really struggling in their absence. But the opposite in Nantucket was actually true. The wives loved the few months that their husbands returned from their voyages, but they also really reveled in their freedom and their independence while the men were at sea. And there's a really great poem from Eliza Brock, who was a Nantucket whaling wife, and I'm going to read it. She says, "Then I'll haste to wed a sailor and send him off to sea, for a life of independence is the pleasant life for me. But every now and then I shall like to see his face, for it always seems to me to beam with manly grace, with his brow so nobly open, his dark and kindly eye. Oh, my heart beats fondly toward him whenever he is nigh. But when he says, 'Goodbye, my love, I'm off across the sea,' first I cry for his departure, then laugh because I'm free." Which I really like that poem a lot.
Yeah.
They even found some old-timey dildos from Nantucket that the women called He's at Homes. And that was kind of surprising because the island was really predominantly Quaker, lots of Quakers there, but also not surprising at all because these are normal physical desires.
Sure. What were the dildos made out of?
Like plaster.
Jeez.
So I don't know if they actually made plaster molds of dicks.
Whoa, that's
yeah.
a great business idea.
Yeah.
That way it's not cheating too if it's a plaster of it.
Yep, if it's if it's the exact replica, you're not cheating. I don't think it's cheating anyway. I don't think that's
I don't know.
even close. Yeah. All right.
You'd be one of those husbands the ladies would be happy to see go, it sounds like. Maybe.
Yeah, you're accusing them of cheating. All right. Whaling was dangerous work, though, and boats were often lost to storms. Men died of things from disease and drowning. And about 25% of the women over the age of 23 in Nantucket were what was known as whaling widows.
That's kind of a double entendre.
Whaling widow? Oh, yeah, because it's also whaling. Yeah. An interesting tidbit is that sperm whale society really wasn't all that different from the unique women-dominated society that had been established on Nantucket through whaling. Pods of sperm whales are comprised of interrelated female whales and immature calves, kind of like elk or a lot of these other animals that have similar mating patterns, where when you see a big group, it's almost always just females and then immature young. And the females actually, with sperm whales, work cooperatively to raise the young in the absence of male whales. And they even take turns standing guard and nursing while other females hunt squid in the deep water.
But their dildos would have to be like a redwood tree.
Yeah, they need a lot of plaster for those. The males leave their pods when they're about 6 years old. They spend most of their lives in higher latitudes where water is colder and more productive, and they only return to their birth waters when they come back to mate, which generally isn't until they're older than 20. These mating encounters are really brief, Mike,
Yeah, no, it's relatable.
And after successfully or unsuccessfully mating, Jeff, the males return to other waters to hunt. So it's really a very strange mirror of what was happening in Nantucket, too. The males are gone for these long periods of time. They're going off to hunt for years at a time, and then they come back to mate and kind of hang out, and then they're gone again. And that essentially is what was going on during the whaling industry in Nantucket. All right, so sorry, there's going to be a lot of history about Nantucket and whaling before we get started, just because it really is important to the context of the story. We're not going to get too into the different officer classes and responsibilities on the boat, but basically there's a captain, a first mate, a second mate, boat steerers, a steward, sailors, and a cabin boy. And I pretty much said those in like order of responsibility and order of like what you'd get paid too. And the sailors are like the biggest group. There's a pretty big jump in overall status between the captain, first mate, and second mate, and then everyone else. Nantucketers were generally treated better on the ship and given first stab at whaling assignments and chores, while people born off-island were treated as outsiders. And on the Essex, 7 of the sailors were black, and the predominantly Quaker-led industry really prided themselves on not taking race into account when it came to how they paid their crew. So black sailors would actually get the same percentage as white sailors of their same rank. But that's not to say racism wasn't very prevalent on these boats and in Nantucket society. They were definitely super racist in their views toward non-Caucasian people, especially African Americans. But this was early 1800s America, so I do think it's pretty impressive that they were at least fair in the way that black sailors were paid.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, they didn't really have the ability to climb the ladder within the boat very much. I don't think you would ever see black sailors that were like captains or first mates or second mates. So, still a bum deal.
And like, they probably weren't honestly given as good an opportunity just for general education and like things you would need to be able to do to be a captain too. So it'd be hard to, but like, that's really like, I'm sure too, like I don't know.
This is pre-Civil War. Yeah. Like they weren't treated as slaves, you know?
A lot of times.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting that they were paid an equal amount. And like, a lot of times people with like less opportunity work the hardest. So like, that's just cool to hear, you know?
Yeah. I think knowing what I know about these kinds of voyages out to sea, I think paying everyone an equal wage probably incentivizes people to be doing their best work, you know? And when you kind of have each other's lives in your hands in a way, I think it was probably just logistically, and I'm not trying to take away from like the decision to do this because it was the right thing to do. But I also think there was some kind of like pragmatic thought process behind like, let's make sure everyone's doing as good a job as we can incentivize them to do. Kind of thing.
That's actually, Mike, a perfect segue for what I wanted to talk about next, which was pay. And the men and the boys that did join the crew, and I say boys because the youngest member of the Essex was 14 years old. The people that joined this crew were paid a percentage of the overall haul of whale oil that they brought back. So whatever they got, like money-wise from that whale oil, they got a percentage of that, and it was called a lay. And some of those lays were crazy small. On the previous voyage of the Essex, the cabin boy, who's kind of lowest on the rung, you know, when it comes to pay, he had received a lay of 1/198 of the total haul. So 1/198th of the total haul. And that total haul was $26,500. So he walked away with about $150 for 2 years of his life. So that's about, in today's dollars, between $3,000 and $4,000. Which is a pretty crazy small wage for 2 years of back-breaking labor.
Yeah. I wouldn't.
Yeah. I will say, like, if you're a cabin boy or a sailor...
Like how much the Louisiana Purchase cost, too.
It didn't cost $150. Yeah. A big part of your first voyages, though, wasn't necessarily that you were going to make a lot of money. It was gaining experience to move up the ranks. And once you got to those higher ranks, you could really make a living out of whaling. When the whaleship Essex left in August of 1819, it was captained by 29-year-old George Pollard Jr. This would be his first voyage ever as captain, but his 5th year aboard the Essex. He had just married a 19-year-old woman the month before, so leaving this time was going to be a bit harder for him. And he's going to be gone for a while. All right. His first mate was Owen Chase, who was 22 years old, very cocky. In the book, he came off kind of arrogant and like pretty bossy, and maybe even a little abusive to some of the men under his command. There's a movie about this, and he's played by Chris Hemsworth, and he's kind of like the hero in that. Just so you know, if you've seen that movie and you're listening to this, it is very, very different from the real account. I don't know why they made it so different, but it's very different. So don't put a lot of stock into it. I don't want to smear Owen Chase too badly. The book doesn't paint the best picture of him, at least in the first half. But he does seem like he was a very confident and very experienced whaler for just being 22 years old. He would yell and swear at the men for even just small mistakes. And a lot of these are like little teenaged Quaker kids. So like swearing was a big shock for them. This was a big change from their normal day-to-day lives.
It's sailor talk, though.
Yeah, you gotta put a little swearing in your talk if you're a sailor. Whaling. The second mate was 26-year-old Matthew Joy, and as I mentioned, the youngest member of the ship was 14-year-old cabin boy Thomas Nickerson. And they talk about him a lot in the book because he wrote one of the accounts from the whaleship Essex, and the book really draws on it because he's the most unbiased of the people that wrote about this. So he is like kind of a main character in the book. So that's kind of our establishing picture of this whole disaster and of Nantucket and the whaling industry. We're going to talk a little bit more about it, but we're going to get into the journey. Are you guys ready?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
All right. The beginning of the voyage was pretty rocky for the Essex, and that's because they clumsily left the harbor, and many of the sailors aboard were really inexperienced or green and didn't know how to work these intricate sails and lines and ropes and workings of the ship. And this clunky start was really embarrassing for Captain Pollard and First Mate Chase, because a lot of the old retired whalers and ship owners would gather on this hill above town with their spyglasses to watch the boat as they left, and they were no doubt like mocking the Essex as they pulled out of the port at Nantucket, which is really embarrassing if you're a new captain. As they set out across the ocean, a lot of the men got seasick to begin with, and the way that Nantucketers would try to fix seasickness was really interesting to me. They would tie a piece of pork fat to a string. They would have the seasick man swallow it while they held the end of the string, and then they would pull it back up and make him swallow it again and again and again until the symptoms of seasickness went away. So yeah.
What's the thought?
It's one of those
that?
things that you like wonder how they came up with that, like why that was what they settled on, you know?
Right.
But we
It
should try
almost
it
seems
when
like
we go
one
to
of those
Antarctica.
things where it's like, you stub your toe and then someone like punches you in the face to make your toe stop hurting.
Right.
It's like,
I hope it was a prank played on them by some of the Native American tribes people who were just like, oh yeah, ancient wisdom. This helps every single time. Just do this. And they're all just laughing at us.
50 years later, they're like, they're still doing it. All right. So despite this bad start, a few days into the voyage, the Essex was actually making really good time. And that was because Captain Pollard had said that he wanted to fly some extra sails that kind of were a little bit risky. And they made you faster, but they were really hard to take down in a sudden storm. So they could be really dangerous. And that's exactly what happened to the Essex. They hit a sudden squall in the Atlantic, and the inexperienced captain and crew made some huge mistakes that led to the ship being essentially completely horizontal in the water for a few scary minutes before she righted herself up. So like the edges of their masts were like dipping in the water. They were so far tipped over.
Oh,
and
wow.
they kind of all thought that they were going to capsize. Kind of like us in Komodo for a minute.
Yeah.
Scary. Oh.
It caused a lot of damage, and the biggest problem was that they had lost 2 of their 5 whaleboats, and a third was heavily damaged. So they had 5 whaleboats aboard, and 2 of them were completely lost, and a third was heavily damaged.
so like once they kill a whale, the whale needs a whole boat to be able to get it back.
Kind of, but what these boats were for is they were the small boats that they would get in to actually pursue the whale.
Sure.
And you needed at least 3 whaleboats to be operational, and the Essex was down to 2. So they managed to mostly repair the damaged ones, so they now did kind of have 3. But they really didn't know if they felt confident going out and hunting whales. So Captain Pollard had an important decision to make. It was either turn around and go back to Nantucket, kind of with his tail between his legs, to get their boats repaired, or continue on to the Azores or Cabo Verde, Cape Verde, where hopefully they could buy another couple whaleboats. So those are some islands that are kind of off the coast of Africa, and that's the direction they were headed at this point. And the captain said, you know what, we're going to go back to Nantucket. And First Mate Chase said, no, let's just go. We'll find some whaleboats. And he actually managed to convince Captain Pollard to continue going. And there was no whaleboats in the Azores, but they were able to buy a bunch of provisions. And then in Cabo Verde, they got lucky because another whale ship had crashed there, and they actually were willing to sell them one of their whaleboats. So they went onward. Just a quick explanation of kind of their route that they would do is they would go out to like the Azores and Cabo Verde on the western coast of Africa, and then they would kind of scoot down through the Gulf Stream and stuff to the southern tip of South America, and they're kind of heading up toward Galapagos is where they're trying to go. So it's a pretty big voyage. And it was actually more than 3 months into their voyage when they saw their first whale. They had a really big dry spell, and didn't really know what was happening, but actually whaling vessels all over the Atlantic were having this same problem. But they finally saw whales in between Rio de Janeiro and Buenos Aires, and they finally got to quickly assemble the whaleboats, get into the water, and hunt some sperm whales. And this is we're going to get into some of the gross details here, but it is important kind of what they would do when they would hunt sperm whales. So
3 months up. Is that just because the whaling had become so ubiquitous that there just weren't many whales left to see?
Yeah, and like the Atlantic is kind of where all of these major, whaling hubs had access to the Atlantic, ready access to the Atlantic. So it was the ocean that got whaled out the first. It got like depleted pretty quickly.
They're just hitting the same spots.
Yeah, like
Pretty
people
hard.
from the UK, people from the US, people from all parts of Europe, Africa, South America, they were all whaling the Atlantic mostly.
Spain.
Yeah.
Spain.
Yeah.
What about Spain,
Portugal.
Wes?
Portugal. I said Europe. Yeah.
Don't forget about
I know.
Portugal.
I won't. I never would. So basically, when they saw sperm whales, the men would rig the boats, quickly sharpen the harpoons and lances, then launch the boats and row toward the whales. The captain and the first and second mates would be standing on the stern of the boats and each of the 3 whaling boats, and then they would direct the men where to row because the rowers would be facing backward and not toward the front of the boat. All but 3 of the men from the ship would be in the whaleboats, and the 3 men that stayed behind were kind of responsible for taking care of the main ship. They'd race on the water when they're rowing, and they would close this mile between them and the whales pretty quickly. They generally launched the boats when they're about a mile away, and experienced whalers would have a really good knowledge of when whales were about to dive and then when they would come up, where they would come up after they dove. So they would get themselves to the exact right place to harpoon when the whales surfaced again. And the book talks a lot about how they would kind of get bloodlust during this part. And the author even describes their whale hunting fever as like almost erotic, how intense they would get about killing whales.
Yeah.
Like, these dudes really loved killing whales. So on this particular day, Chase's boat was the first to get to this whale, and the harpooner now had this job of driving the harpoon deep enough into the whale that it wouldn't dislodge. This harpoon is connected to this really long length of rope, and basically once the whale is harpooned, it's going to drag the boat, and they call this a Nantucket sleigh ride, until it exhausted itself. And then once it's tired enough, and that whale kind of surfaces again, the leader of that whaleboat would take a 12-foot lance with a pedal-shaped blade and would thrust it into the whale, trying to reach vital organs for a kill.
This really is very sexual. All the terminology and the imagery and everything.
Like a Nantucket sleigh ride is probably something else now.
Yeah, for sure.
Someone get on Urban Dictionary and see what that means nowadays. I'm sure it's something. But yeah, this is the worst part, is they would take this lance and they're trying to like find a vital organ to kill the whale. And that's easier said than done. And sometimes they would have to thrust over a dozen times to kill the whale, which leads to a ton of blood and oil on the surface as this whale is thrashing around. And I'm going to read a quick selection from the book that's kind of dark, but I think it paints a good picture of what this looked like. When the lance finally found its mark, the whale would begin to choke on its own blood, and its spout transformed into a 15 to 20 foot geyser of gore that prompted the mate to shout, "Chimneys afire." As the blood rained down on them, the men took up the oars and backed furiously away, then paused to watch as the whale went into what's known as a flurry, beating the water with its tail, snapping the air with its jaws, even as it regurgitated large chunks of fish and squid. The creature began to swim in an ever-tightening circle, then just as abruptly as the attack had begun with the first thrust of the harpoon, it ended. The whale fell motionless and silent, a giant black corpse floating fin up in a slick of its own blood and vomit. So it's not pleasant.
No.
It's sad.
It makes sense, though. Like, it's the biggest animals in the world, so it's like,
They're
you
not
can't
easy to
just
kill.
get, like, one of those things from No Country for Old Men that
The
kill
little air-
cows.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You got it. It's got, yeah.
You got to get some organs.
You have to flip a coin first. You're like, call it. The whale doesn't know how to speak. What's it going to say? Make one of those like 20-minute long songs that they sing? That's not going to help.
After they killed the whale, it'd be dragged back to the ship where the blubber would be removed and cut into small squares and boiled. The fire would first be lit with wood, but then they would take this crispy whale skin and feed the fire with it. And that would produce this terrible smell and a bunch of really black, oily smoke. They then cut open the whale's head, and they would access this case of the whale, which was this cavity that had up to 500 gallons of spermaceti, that oil. And it's
That's
this
so
really,
much.
yeah, it's really high quality, and it actually solidify a little bit when it was exposed to air. But they would literally get inside of this cavity with buckets and like bucket this oil out into casks. The final thing that was kind of crazy that they would look for in these whales is they would probe its intestines, because whales that were like constipated or had intestinal problems had this ashy, opaque substance called ambergris in their intestines, and they used it in perfume, and it was really valuable. It was like worth its weight in gold. So
What?
they would look for that too. Yeah. One whale would provide
Dude, back
about
in the day, I feel like perfume really gave
Probably
you
just
an
stunk.
advantage. Yeah. No, I'm saying like nowadays it's like you can get cheap stuff, you can get expensive
Yeah.
stuff. It's hard to notice the difference sometimes. But like back in the day, if you had like a expensive perfume, you were turning heads.
That's true.
Yeah. Everyone must have been super gross if the remains of whale intestines made you smell better
Smelled great. Yeah.
than before.
Yeah. It's a good point.
Filthy. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Me. I won't ever try it
No.
personally.
No. Well, they still use some weird things in perfumes like civet
Yeah. The civet.
glands and yeah.
Ugh.
One whale, though, would provide about 40 barrels of oil, and the men on the Essex were hoping to get about 1,400 barrels during their entire voyage. So about 35 whales is what they're hoping to kill. There was obviously a lot of spillage, a lot of blood, so the boat would pretty much look like this blood-covered inferno by the end of processing a whale. It would sometimes take up to 3 days just to process one whale, and it was a very dirty business. Anyway, on this day, Chase's boat pulled up next to this whale. His inexperienced harpooner is about to take his first throw, when suddenly all of these men are thrown more than 10 feet up into the air. The boat explodes around them. And that's because another whale had hit the boat from below with its massive tail, and the men were uninjured, but they're now just clinging to the wreckage of this boat and waiting for rescue from the other whale boats.
Wow.
And while a whale had never attacked like a big boat before, they did often, in their rush to get away from these men, they would sometimes destroy the smaller whale boats. And so this isn't like totally unheard of.
This episode is brought to you by Coast. If your business hasn't changed how you pay for gas and materials, you're losing tens of thousands a year to fraud, hidden fees, and hours spent on paperwork. Coast Pay eliminates fraud, saves you money, and automates all of your accounting, all in a card that can be used anywhere Visa is accepted. Coast Pay is the modern fuel card and expense management tool built for fleets. This isn't software built by someone who's never run a crew. Fuel, maintenance, materials, now all on one card with real control and instant visibility. You see every transaction the moment it happens. No more end-of-month surprises. If someone tries to fill up at an odd time or buy something outside their limit, you'll know instantly. And fraud protection actually works on Coast. No shared pins, no missing receipts, no guessing. Employees check in by text, Coast verifies the purchase, and you stay in control. And unlike old fuel cards, Coast works everywhere Visa is accepted. Every gas station, every brand, every time. Your drivers aren't detouring just to find the one station that'll take your card. Right now, Coast Pay is offering our listeners up to $2,000 in credit when you get started at coastpay.com/claw. Go to coastpay.com/claw to see how you can earn up to $2,000 in credit. Terms apply. That's coastpay.com/claw. Disclaimer, the Coast Visa commercial credit card is issued by Celtic Bank. All card accounts subject to credit approval. Thank you, Coast, for sponsoring this episode.
Something I didn't really expect at this stage in my life was to become a cat person, but I am. I absolutely love my cat Toad. I get so excited to see him every day. He's just so sweet and nice and just such a great addition to my day every day. And because of that, I want to make sure that he's happy, and that's why we feed Toad Smalls. Smalls is fresh, protein-rich meals that support cat health and cat happiness, so they are living their best 9 lives. And I really do think it's important that our pets are happy, and one of the happiest parts of their day should be when they're eating. I know we're constantly giving our pets little treats and whatnot, and they just get so excited to have a treat, so why can't their food just be a treat too? And Smalls really is. It's preservative-free, 100% human-grade ingredients that you'd find in your fridge, and it's delivered right to your door. Cats.com actually named Smalls their best overall cat food, and for a limited time, you can get 60% off your first order plus free shipping when you head to smalls.com/tooth. For me, I've just noticed after feeding Toad Smalls, he just seems happier, his breath is a little bit better, and his coat does really look shinier. So stop guessing which meals are going to upset your cat's stomach or not make them happy. For a limited time, because you are a Tooth and Claw listener, get 60% off your first order plus free shipping when you head to smalls.com/tooth. One last time, that's 60% off your first order plus free shipping when you head to smalls.com/tooth. So really, this isn't their ideal first hunting trip.
No.
But a few days later, they do see some more whales. They finally kill and process a whale. And it's a really slow start to this whole journey. They're 4 months at sea, only one whale. To make matters worse, they're pretty under-provisioned, so all these men are like pretty cranky and not happy with just eating like salty beef and hardtack all the time.
Do they not eat the whale?
That's a good question. Like you would think that they would have as much meat as they could ever want.
Yeah, just kind of gross, but
yeah,
at least you're not starving.
I know that whale meat is pretty high in mercury, but I still think you can eat it in a pinch. So I don't know. I don't know why they didn't eat more whale. But the waters got really cold and rough as they approached Cape Horn. They were hit by some really strong westerlies as they came around the tip of South America. They had to fight that wind for a full month before they were finally able to make it around the Cape. Which must have just been miserable. And they finally make it around, though, and when they do, they run into these other whale ships, and they get some really bad news. And that bad news is that everyone on the Pacific side of South America is also having a really hard time finding whales and killing whales. And this used to kind of be their honey hole. This used to be where you would be able to fill your boat with whale oil. Whale oil is really hard to say. Try saying it once. Yeah.
Whale oil.
It's not easy.
Has anyone ever done that joke to say whale oil beef hooked really fast?
Whale oil beef hooked? What's that? I don't get that
beef
joke.
Hooked.
Beef hooked.
Wow, beef.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Yeah.
Well, I just did it to you, so now you can say someone's done it to you. Congratulations.
Is that an actual joke you've heard?
Yeah, that's a thing
Before?
people.
Huh. Whale oil. Okay.
It's like an Irish man saying, I don't know. It's a
I'll
real
have to think
weird.
about that one. Yeah.
In an Irish voice, it'd be real funny.
Anyway, rather than kind of realize, hey, maybe we need to press pause on whaling because we're not finding whales anymore, what they decided to do was look for new whaling ground and push further out into the Pacific. And there was this tale of this captain who had pushed about 1,000 miles from the coast of Peru and had found tons of sperm whales, and he named this area the offshore ground. So Pollard and his crew decided to give it a shot. They headed up the coast of South America, the western coast. They managed to kill about 11 sperm whales by the time they reached what is now southern coast of Ecuador, and they went ashore for a little bit. It was like paradise for them.
So what's like their goal?
35 whales. Yeah. But when they got to Ecuador, they went on land, and it's kind of paradise. There's fruit everywhere. It's warm. It's beautiful. You guys have been to Ecuador.
Loved it.
And one of their men actually ends up jumping ship. One of the sailors is just like, hey, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And I don't blame him. It sounds like I probably would want to do the same. But it was really bad news for the Essex because they really don't have extra guys. And it meant they would only be able to leave 2 people on the whale ship when they went whaling, or on the main ship when they went whaling. All right, they kill a few more whales on the way to Galapagos. And then when they get to Galapagos, they started a different kind of slaughter. And what they would do, as we learned in Galapagos, is the men would go out and collect hundreds of live tortoises from the islands that they would keep alive on the ships as this kind of sort of long-term food source. The tortoises were really easy to catch, and they'd sometimes provide hundreds of pounds of meat, so they were just considered this kind of free food for sailors. And the men would go out hiking, and they would tie the legs of the tortoise together and then actually like hoist them onto their backs and then backpack them to the ship.
Wow.
This wholesale tortoise slaughter led to the extinction of several of the different tortoise species in the Galapagos and the near extinction of the others. It was also insanely cruel because they thought that tortoises could go weeks or even months without food or water. So they didn't feed or give water to these tortoises on board. And they would just kind of slowly wander around and like lick all the different planks trying to get food and water. So these tortoises were just starving slowly aboard these ships.
Dude.
Which is pretty sad.
Yeah.
So while the Essex was hunting tortoises on one of the islands, one of the men, Thomas Chappell, who's a bit of a prankster, decided he would set fire to the dry brush on the island while the men were hunting, which ended up leading
Sick
to
prank,
a
dude.
huge wildfire. Yeah. He almost killed the entire crew.
Dude.
And he burned this entire island and likely killed thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of reptiles and birds. And that island was one of the first islands to lose all of its tortoises.
Wow.
Which is wild. Yeah. So Nickerson, this little cabin boy, actually loved the wildlife of the Galapagos, and he was one of the only people that seemed to kind of have some remorse about all of this.
Yeah.
All right.
That one guy would have been like a streamer nowadays, huh?
Yeah, he probably would have gotten like hella clout for doing that. You guys know kind of ocean sizes relative to each other?
Yeah.
Kinda.
What's the biggest?
Pacific.
Specific.
Yeah. And is it significantly bigger than the other oceans?
Good amount. Yeah.
It sure is. It's actually kind of hard to grasp just how vast the Pacific Ocean is, and I didn't fully understand it until I read this book. It's about 12,000 miles from the shore of Colombia to Indonesia, which is crazy.
Dude. Yeah. When you like spin the globe, if you see a globe and you spin it to be looking at just like the other side of the planet Earth, it's all just the Pacific Ocean. And then you spin it around to see the land, basically. It's pretty wild.
I think growing up, for whatever reason, it kind of seemed like crossing the Atlantic was similar to crossing the Pacific, and it's not. Like, the Atlantic is a short hop compared to crossing the Pacific. They're vastly different oceans. And on November 20th, 1819, the men of the Essex were about 1,500 nautical miles west of Galapagos and about as far from land as you can be in the world. So, like, from any island, from any kind of land, they were kind of out in the middle of everything. 4 days previous, they'd hunted some whales, and once again a whale surfaced under Chase's boat and left the men clinging to wreckage. Once again, they had to abandon their hunt. So on the 20th, on a bright, clear day with very little wind, they spotted whales and they launched the whaleboats. Chase led his boat to a spot where he thought the whales would surface, and sure enough, his experience once again proved really valuable. The whales surfaced right next to his boat. A little too close even. He had taken over the harpooning, and when he threw this harpoon, the whale slapped its tail against his boat and opened up a big hole in the side of the boat. So immediately water starts pouring in. He grabs a hatchet, he cuts the rope on the harpoon, and then orders his men to stuff their jackets into this hole so they can get back to the ship. They go back to the ship. They lift their boat up onto the deck where he starts nailing some canvas over the hole. And we're going to pin this for next episode, but he's really pounding this hammer into the canvas on the side of this boat. And that echo is reverberating through the water.
Whoa.
Both Captain Pollard and second mate Joy had harpooned whales, and they were being taken on these Nantucket sleigh rides. So Chase is kind of pissed that he's once again like out of the game, and he's back on the Essex trying to fix his boat. He has little Thomas Nickerson, the 14-year-old, I think he's 15 now, take over the helm of the Essex while he's working on this boat, and he's having Nickerson steer the ship toward where Pollard and Joy are. And while he's doing that, they all look down in the water and they see something strange.
Cthulhu.
And what they see is a whale.
Oh,
Yeah, what was your guess?
one of the ancient ones. Cthulhu?
Cthulhu. That would be, yeah. You know, maybe whales are the ancient ones. Who
You'd think
knows?
they would not find it strange at this point.
A whale. He's like, whoa, a whale. You're right, Jeff, but it wasn't just any whale. This was the biggest sperm whale that any of the men had ever seen, easily longer than 85 feet. And there's a reason for that. They were seeing a male sperm whale, which they didn't often see. And the strange thing about this particular whale was that its head was mostly out of the water. It was about 100 yards away, and it was pointing straight toward the ship. And generally, when they approached pods of whales with the larger ship, with the Essex, the whales would panic and flee. But this one was just kind of floating there. It was blowing its blowhole toward them, and then it dove and surfaced even closer to the ship, about 35 yards away.
Pretty
What
unsettling.
do you think? Yeah, like blowing its blowhole aggressively has to feel a little weird, you know?
Yeah.
But
It's like Brad Pitt
that's what they
eating
say.
his steak in Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
The men thought this was curious, but they weren't really nervous or scared at all because after all these years of whaling, no ship had ever purposely been sunk by a whale. But then this whale did something that really actually did alarm the men aboard the Essex. It started pumping its huge tail back and forth and then side to side, and then it shot through the water toward the ship, leaving a big wake of water on either side of its head. So it's aimed straight toward the port side of the ship, which is the left side if you're facing the front, and it's leaving just like a wake of water as it's shooting across the surface of the water.
It kind of did the cartoon move where your legs start spinning before you actually start moving.
Yeah.
Or like you wind up a punch.
The Donkey Kong, yeah.
Chase only had time to yell to Nickerson, pull the helm hard up, when the whale crashed into the side of the boat, and the noise was so loud that it drowned out everything else. Tortoises went skidding across the deck, all of the men crashed to the boards, and then they slowly got up and stared at each other in amazement, like they had all just kind of lived the same nightmare and were waking up from it. A sperm whale had just deliberately rammed their boat. But this whale wasn't done. Sperm whales, as we mentioned, have the largest brain of any animal on Earth, and they're also the largest tooth predator on Earth. So this, like, you know, we know that orcas are the number one kind of apex predator on Earth, but sperm whales are bigger and they are toothed whales, but they're mostly hunting like giant squid and other things.
Yeah.
It's impossible to know exactly what this particular whale was thinking or why it had decided to ram the whale ship repeatedly. We're going to talk about that a little bit in part 2. But the fact that it didn't immediately swim away after the first collision makes me think that it now at this point is enraged. It wants to like another shot. That first collision could have been a weird accident or like a miss, you know, just didn't know what it was. But now I think this whale is pissed. The men feel the whale bump the bottom of the ship as it passes underneath the Essex, and then it tears off the false keel as it passes by, which is this huge board on the bottom of the ship. And then it does something even stranger. The huge whale surfaces right next to the ship and floats with the entire top of its body exposed, Its head is near the bow or the front of the ship, and its tail is all the way down near the stern. So it's a big whale, and it's kind of just showing the men like how big it is. It's floating right next to the boat.
Almost acting like it's like a mating opponent or something. Like
yeah, which it could have thought. And again, we'll get into that and why the hammering was important in part 2. But it floats there long enough that the men are thinking maybe it stunned itself from the collision or something. And Chase grabs his harpoon. And he's thinking, okay, I'm going to harpoon this whale from the Essex. And he's ready to throw the harpoon when he notices the whale's tail is dangerously close to their rudder. And we all know what happens when whales rip off rudders on this show, because we've talked about orcas doing it. It like kills your boat if you lose your rudder. You can't go anywhere at that point. It's a big deal. And Chase knew that, and so he really didn't want to lose the rudder out in the middle of the Pacific, and he decides not to harpoon this whale. And this is a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life and through the horrors of the months ahead. So pretty much a third of a sperm whale's body is its head, and the head is cushioned by this huge cavity of oil. So really, they're really good at ramming stuff if they have to without really feeling much. And it didn't take long for this sperm whale to be ready to fight again. It swam about 600 yards away, and the men in the Essex watched as the whale started thrashing in the water, snapping its jaws with rage and fury, as Chase would say in his diary. And then about 100 yards away, it swam perpendicular to the bow of the boat and then lined up with the Essex again. Meanwhile, Chase is like yelling at the men to get the pumps ready in case they were taking on water, and he's not really paying attention to the whale, but he really should have been, because at this point, it's speeding through the water toward the Essex faster than before. It looks like a huge 85-foot torpedo moving across the surface of the water. Chase would later say that it was one of the most terrifying things he had ever seen, and that it was leaving a whitewater wake more than 40 feet across as it barreled toward them.
What?
He yelled at Nickerson to change course and try to avoid the whale, but it was too late. A huge shattering crash rocks the boat, and even though the men were prepared this time, they all fell to the deck again, and they felt their ship being pushed through the water. The whale had lodged its head into the hole in the boat, and it was pushing the entire ship through the water as it pumped its tail back and forth. It's pushing so hard that the boat is starting to list all the way to the side, and the rails on the opposite side of the boat are like there's water coming up over them because the whale's pushing so hard and fast through the water.
Jeez.
Then, in just an instant, the whale disengages, it swims off, they never see it again, and one of the men yell that the ship is filling with water. Chaos ensues, and everyone's scrambling to get the whale boats ready to get off the boat, but one of the black crewmen, a steward named William Bond, had the foresight to run to the captain's quarters and grab some navigational equipment, and that's a decision that would ultimately save some of these men's lives. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
They load whatever they can into chests. They load those chests into the whaleboat. They get the whaleboat into the water just as the Essex starts to list dangerously to the port side. And as they get into the whaleboat and clear the ship, the Essex groans and capsizes as they all watch in horror. This scene was very surprising to the men out in the other two whaleboats, because they had no idea what was going on. And 1 second the Essex is there, and the next second it's gone.
Yeah.
So their entire lives are in this boat, and they watch it just disappear. And they release their whales. They both were on whales. They cut their harpoons, and they paddle back to the ship. And as they get closer, they can make out the shape of the ship, the Essex floating on her side, and the whaleboat with Chase's men nearby. They pull up, and all three of the loaded whaleboats just stare in stunned silence at the Essex. And Pollard is so overcome by grief that he falls to his seat, and then he finally looks up at Chase and says, "My God, Mr. Chase, what is the matter?" Which is like, I think a phrase that's changed in its meaning over the time.
Yeah.
But he was like asking what happened. And Chase replies, "We have been stove by a whale," or like sunk by a whale, essentially. The 20 men of the whaleship Essex had just made history as the only whaleship to ever be attacked and sunk by a whale, and now they were floating in the Pacific, basically as far from land as you can possibly be in the world, and they had just survived a traumatic and harrowing event. But their real trauma and pain and horror was really just beginning, and that's what we're going to talk about in episode 2.
No, Wes, come on, dude. Please. I'll do anything.
A little spoiler.
Oh.
These guys are going to run out of food aside from each other.
Whoa.
All right. Maybe I can wait. Well,
ED doesn't mean that your love life is over. It means you're just getting started. With personalized treatment options to help you take back control and spontaneity thanks to daily meds. Through HIMS, you can access personalized prescription treatment options for ED if prescribed. You shouldn't have to go out of your way to feel like yourself. HIMS brings expert care straight to you with 100% online access to personalized treatments that put your goals first. Think of HIMS as your digital front door that gets you back to your old self, with simple 100% online access to trusted treatments for ED and more, all in one place. To get simple online access to personalized, affordable care for ED, hair loss, weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/tooth. That's hims.com/tooth for your free online visit. hims.com/tooth. Featured products include compounded drug products, which the FDA does not approve of or verify for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. See website for details, restrictions, and important safety information. Actual price will depend on product and subscription plan.
if you've been putting off getting life insurance, there's no better time to do it than now. Over 2/3 of Americans overestimate the cost of life insurance, but it's much more affordable than you think. And Fabric by Gerber Life makes it so quick and so easy to make sure that your family has more financial protection this year. Fabric by Gerber Life is term life insurance you can get done today. Made for busy parents like you, all online, on your schedule, right from your couch. You could be covered in under 10 minutes with no health exam required. I don't have any kids, but I remember the first time I signed up for life insurance, I named my dad my beneficiary. And honestly, even just that, I was a young guy, fresh out of college, just got my first job, and I felt a weight lift off of my shoulders. So I can't even imagine how good it would feel if you have a wife, a husband, children, all that you want to take care of financially. And like I said, if you have kids, especially if you're young and healthy, it's time to lock in low rates now. And even if you, like I, had life insurance through your employer, it may not offer enough protection for your family, and it may not follow you if you leave your job. Fabric has flexible, high-quality policies that fit your family and your budget, like $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day. $1 a day. That's like a tenth of my daily candy budget. Should probably look into getting life insurance with these guys. So join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/tooth. That's meetfabric.com/tooth. MEET fabric.com/tooth. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company. Not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions.
All right. You guys got any questions before we get to our categories? It's kind of a long story. Yeah.
Do you think maybe
I'm glad you bared with me.
we could use some of this whale oil in the NFL players that wear those safety helmets? Sounds like it's pretty good cushion for the head.
They're huge heads. Those helmets look like sperm whale heads. They're
They're
huge.
so big, a third of the body.
It might be more fun if, like, instead of sticky gloves, we gave them like oil gloves. The
So
wide
the ball's
receivers
just like
and stuff.
slipping
Yeah.
everywhere,
Make it even harder to
squirting
catch.
up in the air. I like that idea. I will say, if you are interested in this stuff, this book is so good. It's a great book. It really goes into a lot more detail about the men, about like Nantucket. It's just a really interesting time in the world's history. So I do really highly recommend reading the book because I'm really glossing over a lot of fun details and horrific details. Okay, anything else before we move on?
No.
I
Would
wanna
they
hear
kill
your
orcas?
I don't think so. I think they really focused on like the ones that they knew they were going to get enough oil for it to be worth it.
Mm.
And sperm whales were really like the best. They were kind of cream of the crop when it came to whale oil.
Whale oil.
Whale oil. Yeah. All right.
And they were called sperm whales because their oil looked like sperm?
The oil in their case or whatever, in that cavity in their head looked like sperm.
Wow.
We talked about that for like 10 minutes, so we should definitely remember that fact.
Yeah.
You said the fact. We talked about
Yeah.
sperm for like 10 minutes.
That's true.
I
Right.
Good point.
making sure.
Yep.
Just
All right.
another day on the job.
Because that's a weird thing to name one of the coolest animals because of.
I know. There's a lot of animals that when you figure out what they were named after, it's kind of like, why don't we rename that? You know,
Yeah.
like sloth bears and
you
sperm
would
whales.
have thought a sperm whale would have been like, yo, Aquaman. You just like change this name.
Give me a new name.
Please.
Is Aquaman who's naming animals these days?
Well, he probably could.
Or he's like a ambassador to people.
Yeah, he's the
Yeah.
in between.
Sure.
But
All right.
Aquaman would have to tell them your name is sperm whale.
That's true.
That'd be embarrassing. He probably lies to these animals.
Yeah, it's like, no, you're the super
Yeah,
sick
you're the
whale. is what
best
we call it,
Godzilla
actually.
whale.
Yeah.
All right.
Godzilla
First category.
whales, that'd be cool.
All right. Your first category is favorite sperm whale from pop culture.
I'll go first.
Okay.
I'm going to choose Pearl.
Oh.
SpongeBob?
Yeah. It's Mr.
Okay.
Krabs' daughter in SpongeBob, which
That's right. Huge
who
head.
would he have had sex with?
Pearl?
A crab? No.
Oh, to produce Pearl.
Yeah,
I think it was a adoption situation.
maybe.
Right.
Wes, what's one characteristic of Mr. Krabs?
He likes to yell.
No, kinda. Yeah.
What is it? What?
I'd say he loves money.
Money.
Oh yeah, he does love money, doesn't he? That's
Yeah.
true.
His pupils
All right.
always turn into dollar signs.
He
That's
does
true.
yell, though.
He yells a lot. All right.
My favorite sperm whale is going to be Laboon. The one piece answer, predictable, but it's got to be a sperm whale from all the characteristics I can identify. Huge head, the little lower jaw with the teeth.
I think sperm whales are commonly like whales, you know, in cartoons and stuff. Like if you draw a whale, it's often a sperm whale.
Yeah.
But my favorite is Monstro from Pinocchio, like a really scary sperm whale from a very early animation. So
yeah,
cool.
classic.
All right. I also asked you guys what the most
Did you
sexual.
see the? Sorry, I keep interrupting you,
You're
but I
good.
need to talk
No.
about the Pauly Shore Pinocchio. And in the
No.
trailer, he's like, "But
Father, when can I leave to be on my own? I've got the whole world to see. You are
Is it a serious movie?
It's just like another animated Pinocchio movie. It's from that year when there were like 5 Pinocchio movies that came out.
Okay. I think I did see.
But everybody, I
think
urge
did
you to
see
go.
this.
I'll put in a little voice clip right here so you all can hear just how funny this line delivery from Pauly Shore is. It's just the best. It's the best.
All right. Category number 2, the most sexual or horniest animal name, because, you know, sperm whale is kind of up there. So were you guys able to find any weird horny animal names?
I went with the spiny lump sucker.
Yeah, I considered that one.
Yeah. It's like horny adjacent. It's not like
Yeah.
all the way, but you know, you can use your imagination.
My mind just went to like the tits. The
Yeah.
birds that we call tits, like yellow-breasted
elegant
tits
tits.
or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Tufted tit tyrant is a bird we might see down in southern Argentina.
Triple T. Whoa.
I picked the slippery dickfish, which Yeah.
What?
was definitely stood out among the other ones that I found. It's an actual fish, slippery dick. Okay, we're just gonna leave that behind. We're gonna do a real quick. We're Jeff and Mike paying attention.
Oh no, I got real sleepy halfway through.
Well, so yeah, I know you weren't paying attention because I said they were going to kill about 35 whales, and 2 minutes later you asked me
You asked.
how many
Yeah.
whales they had to kill. But that's not one of the questions. Let's do it. So whoever loses, we pick their first movie on our flight to Antarctica. I like that penalty. Do you guys
Let's do
like
it.
that? Are you
Yeah.
Are you good with that? Okay. Who wants the first question?
Jeff.
Jeff, what year did the whaleship Essex leave Nantucket?
1819.
Correct. Good job. It's a point for Jeff. Yeah. Mike, how old was Captain Pollard when they left?
26.
29.
Nah, shoot.
Oh, sorry. I should have let you try and steal that. Jeff, would have you been able to steal it?
Yeah.
I think he dug that other answer out of the recesses of his brain.
I'll give you a chance. How old was Owen Chase, the first mate, Jeff?
Is
This
you
is your steal.
okay if I get this right, Mike?
Yeah, whatever.
23.
22. Very close.
Sure.
Okay. Jeff, your
said
second
23.
question. I did not. What modern day country were the men in when one of their crew jumped ship?
Bill, play back where he says 23.
Okay, Bill, please play back where I said how old Owen Chase is. Jeff,
Sorry,
what modern day country were they in when one of their crew jumped ship?
That's easy. Ecuador.
Ecuador, correct. Mike, what is the name of the cape at the very southern tip of South America?
Cape Horn.
Correct.
Which,
2-1.
if you say it really fast, it kind of sounds like you're saying gay porn.
It does. Cape Horn, Cape Horn. You got a lot of really fast isms on this episode. All right.
If you say gay
Jeff.
porn, do you ever think of Cape Horn?
That's all I can think about. Yeah. It's the tip of South America.
When someone's like, yeah, I was watching gay porn, you're like, you were thinking about the Cape Horn?
What
Me
does
too.
it?
All right. Jeff, how many total men were aboard the Essex when they first set sail? This is your last official question, too, just so you know.
23.
Mike,
I got 23 in
you
my
want
mind
to steal?
now.
Yeah. 21?
Correct.
Ooh,
man.
It's tied
Boy.
up. Matt or Mike, you have a chance here to take the lead.
Matt?
How many total whale...
That's
It's been
crazy.
a long week.
What
This
the
was an
heck?
episode that took a long time. How many total whale boats did they have when they left Nantucket?
3.
Whale boats.
Ooh,
Jeff,
can I
would
steal?
you like to steal? Yep.
5.
5, correct.
Why do they have that many?
They
3
needed a spare.
broke.
They needed 2 spares. Yeah. They needed 3 operational ones, but they wanted to have spares too.
That's lit.
All right. So Jeff's winning 3-2.
Spare wheels.
We do this. What's his name? Gandalf's. The other guy. The other wizard.
Saruman?
No, the one in Harry Potter.
Dumbledore.
Dumbledore
You're
rules.
doing Dumbledore rules?
Yep. So bonus question. Bonus question. Actually, you know what? Let's do it. This just ties it up if you get it, and you both have to pick a movie for each other. If Mike gets it, if Jeff gets it, he
It's
wins.
my turn.
No, this is a bonus question. So it's you both have had 3 questions. You're winning 3-2. So if Mike gets this, you both get to pick a movie for each other. If Jeff gets it, he wins. What species of whale, and don't yell out an answer because I'm going to get specific here. What species of whale was their main target before they started hunting sperm whales? And I will only accept their full name because I did say it at the very beginning.
That's impossible.
Right whales.
Think about where they were found when they first started hunting them.
Nantucket right whales.
North Atlantic right whales. And I did say that. I was careful to say the whole name.
Yeah,
So Jeff wins. You get to pick Mike's first movie. I look forward to
Good
seeing
game,
what it
Jeff.
is. Yeah.
Good game.
All right.
I don't know
another
how I got 18-19.
That's pretty
that's
wild.
a good poll.
I was really excited for you there.
I knew it was the 1800s is where I was at.
Yeah.
So you had 100 years to play around with in your
I
brain.
did say it like 3 times, so maybe it just got, it got put in there. But all right, another question for you guys. What's your favorite historical nonfiction book? Because this one is up there for me.
Oh, that's a toughie. Oh, man, that's tough.
I can lead off because I have my answer. I really like Unbroken, which was about Louis Lamperini or whatever his name is. He's the guy that got shot down in the ocean, survived floating on the ocean, and then survived a Japanese POW camp. It's just a really inspiring story, I thought. I really enjoyed that one.
What was the substance called from the whale brains? It was like spermarite.
Spermaceti.
Spermaceti. That also sounds kind of
Yeah.
like an Italian surname.
Yeah, Spermaceti.
I'm going to go with, I just finished actually a really, really great one called Madhouse at the End of the Earth. It's about a really awfully organized and executed voyage down to Antarctica by the Belgica. So that one's just top of mind just because I finished it recently. But I'll go with The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich by Shearer. It's he was a journalist. He was on the ground before the U.S. was even involved in World War II. He just has a really unique boots on the ground kind of perspective of what was happening in Europe during the rise and the fall of the Third Reich. It's a real tough book to walk around with in public because it always just has a giant swastika on it. Like no version of the book has ever been printed to my knowledge that just doesn't have like a massive glowing red and black swastika just plastered all over the front of it. But
That's
awesome book. Really, really cool. A little dated here and there, but it's got, I don't know, it's just a really unique perspective on the whole situation. And I think it's valuable insight.
Yeah. When we moved into our house, like I got to tour it before the other people moved out. And there was like a few too many Nazi books. You know, where it's like, if there's a couple, you're like, oh, we're dealing with the history buff here that likes to kind of read about everything. There was just a couple too many where it was kind of like,
Yeah, 4 or 5, you're starting to wonder.
Yeah.
Mine is Mein Kampf.
No, it's not.
No, mine, I don't know. I really loved Escape from Camp 14, but like from a North Korean prisoner that escaped, but then I've kind of looked back and seen that a lot of that stuff's been disproven.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to, there's probably not completely nonfiction anymore. I like No Man Knows My History. I like Hiroshima was a good one. Just like hearing the account of everything in Hiroshima when the nuke hit. So
okay.
a couple.
All right. Jeff, do you got a couple listener questions for us?
Yes.
Read them, please.
Do you want me to start out with my hardest one?
Yeah.
All right, this is the hardest one. Cat3 Anderson asks, what's my favorite animal? Like, what's their favorite animal?
Their favorite animal? I don't know.
What's their name?
Is there an answer?
Cat, but with a K.
Oh, okay. I'm going to go with leopard.
Oh, we're just supposed to tell them what their favorite animal is?
Yep.
Yeah.
Leopard.
I'll stick by Mike. I don't think we can give her 3 favorite animals.
Sure, leopard. Yeah.
Because Cat, maybe that's Katharine Hepburn and bringing up baby. It's got to be that.
All right. PHF Silva asks, hey guys, did you see there's a movie called Grizzly Night inspired by Night of the Grizzly?
Yeah. Kind of a funny story is our network was reaching out to us about potentially making a movie about Night of the Grizzlies, like being producers on a movie that would be a dramatic retelling of Night of the Grizzlies. And we were kind of starting to talk to them about that. And then we saw the trailer for that movie. So it's kind of a bummer. And it doesn't look great to me, but enjoy it if you see it.
You think that's a funny story?
Yeah, I guess. It's not really funny, but ironic.
Maddie Bolster asks, the Olympics have been amazing. What's a sport that should be added?
Snowball fight.
Let's say winter.
Ooh, I like that.
Are you kidding me? How has that not been added
pick.
yet?
Yeah.
You could go like one-on-one, like solos, and then doubles, and then team. It could be like a whole swath of events to be added.
Yeah. I don't have a better answer than that. I would like to just see like long slide. Like you just run on the ice and you slide as far as you can.
Ooh,
with just
that's
like
good.
normal shoes.
That's pretty good too.
You know?
Yeah. I always forget what it's called, but the cross-country skiing with shooting.
Biathlon.
Yeah,
Biathlon. So I want like the snowboard half pipe with shooting.
Yeah, but it's like a rocket launcher.
Like
it's
you
an
do
RPG.
like no, but you do like a backflip while you're like shooting targets.
Yeah,
like
upside
sure.
down.
I like that.
Everyone
man.
has to like watch behind bulletproof glass.
I genuinely don't know which of these 3 I would rather attend. These all
The
sound
sliding
awesome.
one would be fun because it's kind of like, I wonder if I could beat that. You know, like you go out and test it. But
well, that's like the secret sauce of the Olympics is a lot of the events you kind of secretly think like handball. It's like, of course, I couldn't be as good as they are at handball, but somewhere in the back of my brain, I'm like, I could be the worst person on a handball team and go to the Olympics. Maybe.
I
It's
could
also-
be the guy laying down on the 2-man.
Yeah, the two-man luge.
Just laying there. You're just padding for the other guy.
Right.
It is, though, like, it's always fascinating to me to think, how did this person decide to devote their entire life to curling? You know, like,
Yeah.
what happened at what stage in their life where this just became their sole focus, you know? It's fascinating.
Well, Mike always has like, maybe it's a little bit more rational for him because he was like a great high school athlete, but he always has this like irrational thought every once in a while where he's like, dude, why don't we just play basketball for 2 years straight and then go play in Europe or something like
Go
that?
play in the Euro League.
Or like
So,
for the Shanghai Sharks
I
or
kind of
something.
feel like if you said curling, I would be like, you know what? Maybe if we do curling for
Yeah.
3 years straight, we might actually
We
like,
could do it.
yeah. Des Avery asks, what do you think is the most misunderstood animal in attack history? So, like, what's the most misunderstood animal attack?
Yeah. I would say venomous snakes. I think
No, I
there
think
are
they're
still
asking for like a
One
specific
specific?
animal attack story.
like one attack story.
Yeah.
It sounded to me like they were saying like the most misunderstood like type of animal for like
We'll do
attacks.
both.
Okay, so for the way that I interpret it, I'd say venomous snakes because I think there are a lot of people out there that still think snakes like seek people out to bite them, like they're attacking people, and every venomous snake bite is defensive. They're not trying to kill us or eat us or anything. But as far as like a single story that might be misunderstood, maybe Treadwell, just because like so many people know about it and so many people still think that he was like doing good out there, that he was like protecting the bears. Yeah.
Yeah. Steve Irwin. Aren't people still mad at like stingrays?
Probably.
Yeah. Maybe he antagonized the stingray. Do we know?
Well, we're going to do his story at some point, but I don't think we know.
Yeah.
But he did antagonize a lot of animals. Bless his heart.
Medusa? Or
Sure.
wait.
That's a misunderstood one.
She's the one that had the. No, Cleopatra.
Snake
Oh, the asp.
bit
yeah.
her on the breast or whatever.
Yeah. Like the snake, she forced it to.
Medusa is the one whose hair was made out of snakes, which is
Yeah,
crazy
she
that
turned
she
people
never
into
got
stone.
bit. That's something to think about.
You got any
I'll
more
go-
questions?
I'll go with sharks as most misunderstood animal for attacks, just because it seems like most of the time it's exploratory or whatever the word is
Yeah.
you always say.
Yeah, between them and snakes, I think are the winners. You got more questions, or is that it, Jerf?
That's it.
All right, we're gonna do a quick conservation corner. It's estimated that the worldwide population of sperm whales was over 1 million before the commercial
No
whaling industry
way.
began. Yeah, in the early 18th century. By 1880, they think they had removed about 30% of those sperm whales. And then from that date until 1946, they do think that they partially recovered. But then after the Second World War, when whaling technology really progressed too, they started using like exploding harpoons, a lot of different things. The population declined to about 30% of the pre-whaling population. They think there was over 1 million sperm whales that were killed between the 1800s and the 1900s. So hunting really led to the near extinction of large whales, including sperm whales. But then bans were instituted in 1917 by the International Whaling Commission. They got full protection in 1985, sperm whales. But Japan did continue to hunt them until 1988. Those Japanese, they love whaling. It's hard to take that away from them.
Like ocean food.
Yep.
They do.
Sperm whale numbers are now thought to be around 350,000, which is a lot better than most whales. They're still listed as vulnerable by the IUCN. Their current challenges are entanglements in fishing nets, collisions with ships, and then they're losing a lot of their prey to overfishing, like the rest of the world's whales. So those are their main threats. They're still definitely threatened or vulnerable. So, all right. And then our claw rating. It's a new animal. So we're going to give them a claw rating from 0 to 10 claws.
This is tough.
Yeah, this was a hard one for me too. because I think it's an animal that if we were out like scuba diving or snorkeling and I saw, it would be like my number one animal encounter of the year and probably for like a very long time. But I don't know if they're even my favorite whale.
They're not my favorite whale, but I think they deserve to be. But they're not.
They're cool whales. Like that they dive. We're going to talk more about their biology.
I'm going to put them at 104, 9 claws.
Okay.
Whoa. Yeah, that's strong. I'll go 8. 8.
Yeah. I think I'm also going to go 8. It's cool that they're the biggest toothed predator on the world, and they're really interesting. And that's I think it's so cool that they have the biggest brain of any animal ever. Cool name. But they just have never really risen to the top for me when it comes to whales.
Actually, they might not even have the most sexual whale name.
What whale has a more sexual name?
Humpback.
Just for you out there that maybe thought, oh, I wish there's a little more biology in this episode, there's going to be more in part 2. And we're probably going to do a subscription episode that's really about their biology and more about the whaling industry history that we'll dive into a little bit deeper. So just so you guys know, there's so much information in this one that I couldn't really squeeze in a ton of biology.
Well, you did a great job regardless, Wes.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. Part 2 is going to be very interesting. It's the part that I think about when I think about this story.
Where the whale hit the ship.
Yeah. Pretty crazy. It wasn't even a white whale, like it was in Moby Dick. They had to kind of
what color
flash it up a little bit. Just a normal sperm whale, kind of blackish when you see him from the surface.
Yeah, classic Hollywood whitewashing.
All right, well, thanks for listening, everyone.
Mike.
We love you. Oh,
We got what's up?
Will you post the whole episode this time?
yeah.
So Mercury was in retrograde. I just have come to learn during that whole technical snafu.
What is your
That's what
sign?
it was.
I think I'm a Virgo.
Oh, no wonder.
Oh, that makes sense. No wonder that happened.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's not my fault. It's the stars.
Yeah, Mercury.
Astrologically, I was doomed to fail.
All right. Well, don't do it again. And we love you guys.
We love you.
Yeah.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.